tough decisions: buy, sell, hold, or avoid. So let's get into it. Let's kick off our first one, and that is Jacksonville Jaguars running back Travis Etienne. Nate, what are you doing?
I'm selling Etienne. He was very productive last year, but when I look at what Etienne did last year, I mean, the efficiencies went down, and like pretty heavily too. You got him. You filled up the show sheet before I did, so you put up, his yards per carry dropped from 5.1 his rookie year to 3.8. And when your yards per carry is under 4 yards, it's not good.
Actually, Nate, let's not forget that was not his rookie season. He spent his rookie season out with an injury.
That is true. I did forget about that. So he was a volume back last year, which in fantasy football, we chase volume. We do. Like, that is absolutely a strategy. You chase volume, the points usually follow. So it's not like I expect Etienne to just fall off the face of the planet, end up as the running back 36 this year. But I don't know if I expect him to be, top 5 again. There's just so many touches last year, so much wear and tear between the receptions and the carries. 325 touches, Mike. When you have over 300 touches in a season,
it's a lot.
It usually puts you at an injury risk the next year, and also usually means your efficiency goes down. But his efficiency was already down last year. So what does that mean for Travis Etienne this year? I'm really not sure. I don't want to predict that he's going to be injured. But like I said, that's a lot of wear and tear in the body. He's not the biggest guy. I am a little bit worried about that, to be quite honest. 4th most carries last year, 3rd most in total touches behind only Christian McCaffrey and Rachaad White. And I think Travis Etienne is probably a bit more Rachaad White than he is Christian McCaffrey. You're selling him.
Yeah, I am. And, let's not forget Dearness Johnson, Tank Bigsby are there. These are guys. Look, are they – well, we don't know what Tank Bigsby is yet.
He's going to be more involved this year. That's what I keep hearing.
So these are guys that could definitely take carries away from him, especially if they want to keep him fresh. The thing is, we were talking about chasing the volume and everything. He got more volume. He was less efficient with it as far as total yards per carry. Oddly enough, though, his touchdowns went up from 5 to 11. I can't explain it. I don't know. I'm not going to try.
But his rushing yards went down. That's the crazy thing.
I know. That's the thing. Like I said, everything else,
more attempts, and his rushing yards went down.
Yeah, it's concerning for sure. And all those carries the year before, it definitely sets you up for an injury risk. We don't want that from starting running back. What are we selling him for, though? I mean, I saw him valued around guys like Drake May, Dalton Kincaid, and Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get Barkley, I mean, even if you add a little bit to Etienne, I would absolutely do that. I think you're in a much better situation just this year. I would move him for wide receiver like Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, because of that positional value. You might be able to get a young stud wide receiver like one of those guys. Or maybe you go all in and you go get Christian McCaffrey. You move Etienne in a 1st-round pick for Christian McCaffrey. Try to really make that run for the championship this year. Or maybe kind of a quote-unquote lateral move, a downgrade as some people would think of it. Moving Travis Etienne for James Cook in a 2nd. That's probably my favorite trade. I think we're going to get pretty similar production out of the two of them, and you get a 2nd on top.
So I did tell you about his value being valued around Drake May, Dalton Kincaid, Saquon Barkley. We asked if you would do Etienne straight up for Barkley. Probably to add a little bit there. Here's another one, too, that I saw. Travis Etienne for Joe Mixon in a 3rd. Been kind of bullish on Joe Mixon this year. My only concern about that trade is you're getting older when you're acquiring Joe Mixon. But Mixon's another guy who's been pretty efficient over his career. What are we doing with Houston Texans wide receiver Tank Dell?
Yeah, I'm holding Tank Dell.
I can't give up right now.
No, he's coming off the injury, but Mike, you have it here. He was wide receiver 19 last year in points per game.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Although I do want to just put in one little caveat here. Whenever I say I'm holding someone, I will always field offers.
Always.
If you want a player, and you're like, and you send me a good offer, we get the conversation going here. I don't want to say I really like this guy. I'm not going to trade him, because that could be detrimental to your team too if you get a really, really good offer. In fantasy points per game with 15 as a rookie, a guy who I was admittedly down on in the pre-draft process.
I mean, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs is there this year, but he's there on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Nico got extended. Nico's the number 1 guy there, but you got CJ Stroud there. You got one of the most exciting young quarterbacks right now in NFL, and he's going to be there for a while. He's going to be the franchise quarterback of the Houston Texans moving forward. It's going to be awesome, and Tank Dell is going to be one of the big benefactors of that. I mean, I think CJ Stroud can absolutely support both Nico Collins and Tank Dell moving forward. Stephon Diggs throws a little bit of a wrench into it for just this year, but moving forward, I think, there's a good reason to hold on to Tank Dell. He'll still probably be pretty productive this year. I could see, him being, a top 30 wide receiver, which would be really impressive considering the competition he's got.
I want to keep him.
Yeah, I don't think his value is going to go down either. You got a lot of upside with Tank Dell.
Let's talk about new Las Vegas Raiders tight end Brock Bowers. Nate, what are we doing here?
Holding Brock Bowers too, because I want to see what he does on the field. This guy is so talented. I don't really want to move him, but like we said earlier, these guys we're holding, we are open to offers, because if I'm a competitive team, I might want to move Brock Bowers, because at the end of the day, he's still a tight end, and it's hard for these guys to have huge seasons the year one. Now, we have seen it recently with Sam Laporta. Kyle Pitts had an incredible year one. A lot of people forgot about that, but he had over 1,000 yards his first year. So Brock Bowers could still be very, very productive his rookie year, but he's got two things going against him. He's a tight end, and he's on the Raiders offense, which I don't expect to be that productive this year. So I don't know how often Brock Bowers is going to be in your starting lineup this year, and that's one of the reasons I would be open to selling him. If I could go get a win now tight end like Mark Andrews, who's actually below Bowers on keep trade cut. So, I mean, if you can move Brock Bowers for Mark Andrews, don't even need anything on top of it. But if you can just go get Mark Andrews in your competitive team, I think that's a great deal to do right now. But otherwise, I'm holding on to Brock.
Why do we do this? We have a guy come in who's in kind of a convoluted and questionable situation. We're going to put him over a guy who, when healthy, could possibly be the tight end one. I don't get it. That being said, like I mentioned earlier, I'm also holding Brock Bowers because I want to see what he could do. I'm extremely intrigued by what the Raiders offense is going to look like this year. Their quarterback situation is what it is. It's either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. Kind of an interesting trio of starting wide receivers, though. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. I don't mind picking up Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker as some buy low guys if you can grab them. I think you probably can get. You could probably get Devontae Adams pretty cheap right now too.
I think so. I think it's like a wide receiver 30 something on keep trade cut.
Hey, what are we doing with Seattle Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker the third?
My initial reaction was, oh, I'm probably selling that guy. But, I took a look into it. Why? I mean, this guy is a very consistent RB2 for you. Doesn't really have the upside, unfortunately, and that's the Seahawks offense. Now with Zach Charbonnet there as well. But consistent over the last 2 years. In 2022, he was RB16 his rookie year. Last year, RB20. He saw a small increase in receptions last year. But I bring that up because when they drafted Zach Charbonnet, Pete Carroll said, hey, Zach Charbonnet is here to open up the screen game. Well, Kenneth Walker, he saw 29 receptions last year versus 27 the year before that. So Charbonnet was not that much of a factor in the screen game, I guess.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? I didn't have Charbonnet pegged for the screen game, but he is pretty good backup running back there. And also, great thing about Kenneth Walker is he finds the end zone, and you want running backs to find the end zone. He has 18 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. He was 5th in missed tackles forced last year, 10th in runs of 10-plus yards. He would have had 1,000 yards or more if he had played in all 17 games. He had 900 yards in 15 games. So this is definitely a talented running back, and I think he could, kind of get up there into the top 12, somewhere around 10, 12, and kind of like just get into that fringe RB1 territory. We know what Kenneth Walker is. He's going to be right there, somewhere in that 10 to 20 range, which is a valuable piece of production in your lineup because running backs can be hard to find, especially consistent ones.
I'm holding him. I'm putting him right in my starting lineup too.
Yeah.
If he's my running back too, I'm feeling really good about that, to be honest with you. And yeah, I mean, he's been productive. He's one of those guys that people just want to move on from. Then give me some more. Right?
That's what I'm wondering, Mike. Do we want to buy Kenneth Walker? He's RB11 right now on keep trade cut. He's 66th overall.
Okay.
So he's right in front of Isaiah Pacheco. He's right in front of Brian Thomas Jr., James Cook, right behind JSN, T. Higgins, Jonathan Brooks. How do you feel about that value with Kenneth Walker?
I feel like it's fair, man.
I think so too.
Who would you rather have then? Let's play a little either or, Pacheco or Kenneth Walker III.
Man, I have been a notorious Pacheco doubter for a couple years now, and I've kind of had to turn around now and kind of, believe in him because he's been so productive, and they continue to believe in him, the Chiefs. Honestly, if I have a competitive team, I'm with Pacheco. I think he's got more upside than Kenneth Walker. Maybe long-term, I want Walker. He's 2 years younger and a bit maybe more consistent moving forward. But this year, I think Pacheco's going to have a great year.
Well, then look, so he was 66. Pacheco was 67 on keep trade cut. Let's go to 68. Kenneth Walker or James Cook?
I love James Cook, so I'm taking James Cook here.
Yeah, I'm going to lean James Cook. And you're only getting a year older going from Walker to Cook, too. But you are a year younger, essentially.
And a better offense.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on. Nate, let's see what we are doing with Xavier Worthy.
All right, with Xavier Worthy, who just got strep throat. As of today. I'm selling him.
Okay.
Got strep throat. I need someone that is consistent. The best ability is availability. No, I'm selling Xavier Worthy just because I think his value has gotten pretty inflated. And you got Marquise Brown there. I know he's there on a 1-year deal. I mean, if Rashee Rice, I know he's going to be suspended most likely. But I don't think Xavier Worthy is just going to walk in and have 1,000-something yards for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not that I'm. I don't think he's a good investment long term. I think, you put him down 6-7 spots in the wide receiver rankings and he's more fair value. I think just with the Chiefs, they always get that bump. Xavier Worthy gets that bump. He's the fastest man to play in the NFL. He's got the Kansas City Chiefs bump. And you get we got a training camp at this point. So I follow 32 beat writers, and every other tweet that they're retweeting is about Xavier Worthy running fast or catching the ball down the field. And it's just getting to this point where, as the value continues to go up, I will be more likely to sell Xavier Worthy where I have him because, can I go get a Zay Flowers or a Tank Dell with Xavier Worthy? If I can do that, I'm making that happen because those players have already shown me that they are studs. And I don't need to take the risk on Xavier Worthy if I can go get what Xavier Worthy could be with one of those two guys. Also, I'm considering, Worthy in a first for Brandon Ayuk and Nico Collins. I think that's a good move. You pay a first to lock in a top wide receiver, that stud wide receiver, especially Nico. I'm a huge Nico fan, as are you. And then, Mike, I want to ask you this one. Xavier Worthy or Jordan Addison?
I think right now I'm going to lean Jordan Addison. I like both players, but I like Jordan Addison more as a prospect coming out. The only thing I will say is Xavier Worthy does not have the quarterback questions that Jordan Addison does. That being said, we've never seen Xavier Worthy play in the NFL before. We've seen Jordan Addison. So I feel a little bit better right now, as it stands on July 23rd, about Xavier Worthy. I'm sorry, Jordan Addison, forgive me. I am holding him. He's a first-round pick of the Chiefs, man. He could be a good, and he's going to be part of what could be a very good and young wide receiver duo, him and Rashee Rice. I don't think anybody's really expecting Marquise Brown to get re-signed, but even if he did, he's still pretty young. But don't forget, all the receptions still go through Travis Kelce until they don't anymore. Kadarius Toney is still there too. No one cares. Kadarius Toney was also taking snaps at running back in camp. Someone's got to play in the last preseason game. They don't want to get their good players hurt. Kadarius Toney's taking snaps at running back. Don't overthink that. Right? And I like him off the line. Could be a really good deep threat for Patrick Mahomes, who has one hell of an arm. I'm going to hold on to him for right now. But again, I will always entertain offers. Nate, we got one more. Justin Herbert, what are you doing?
Spoiler alert, we are not agreeing on this one, Mike. And I'm a little disappointed. A little disappointed in you because I am buying Justin Herbert. I am over this redraft mentality with Justin Herbert that I'm seeing in the Dynasty community where it's, he doesn't have really good wide receivers, and he's got Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman there. So who cares about Justin Herbert? Let's go invest in all these other quarterbacks. What are we doing? Justin Herbert, I don't want to say that he's like a future Hall of Famer. He's got to win some stuff first, but he's got the talent to reach that kind of accolades. We've seen, the first 2 years he averaged over 22 points per game. He's throwing the ball a ton, but it's not often that a rookie quarterback comes into this league and averages 22 plus points per game for the first 2 years. The last 2 years have been a bit of a step back as the offense has struggled. They obviously had a lot of injuries with the wide receivers over the past 2 years. Their first round pick in Quentin Johnson did not work out quite as well as they hoped. But this guy is becoming a value because we're looking long-term here, and Justin Herbert is locked in long-term. Disappointing last year, right? Quarterback 8 in points per game. Disappointing with a quarterback 8 in points per game finish. This is what I don't get it. This is the second worst finish of his 4-year career. It was quarterback 8, and everyone's down on him. Now you insert Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, who are very, very good coaches who know what they're doing, have been productive before, very, very productive, and their quarterbacks have been productive. Now, some of them have run a bit more than Justin Herbert, but Herbert's a pretty good athlete himself. He can run. The O-line will be improved. The defense will be improved. The volume will go down. That's what everyone's worried about, but the efficiency will go up. This offense is still going to score touchdowns. They're probably going to win more games than they have in the past couple of years with Brandon Staley. I believe in Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman and what they can do with this team. Now, is the offense full of incredibly talented skill position players? No. But Justin Herbert is a good enough quarterback where that doesn't worry me too much. He might be a quarterback 2 this year. He might be the quarterback 13 or something. But that's not that big of a fall for Justin Herbert. And then the next year, if they continue to invest in that offense a little bit, once they've kind of remade that offensive line, which they've started doing, we could see even more upside for Justin Herbert. I just don't get the hate for Justin Herbert right now. You know, 229 rushing yards last year and 3 touchdowns. We could see improvement on that, which would obviously help. Look, you just gotta go get him. I saw trades Will Levis in the first for Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
I
don't
saw
do that.
Jared Goff and DeAndre Swift for Justin Herbert. Come on. If you have someone in your league who's scared of Justin Herbert, go pick him up. It'll behoove you.
One of the reasons that sometimes to make your team better, you have to sell your best players. So the reason that I chose to sell Justin Herbert is I am concerned about the wide receiver.
You're rebuilding. I get it.
Thanks. I'm not so much concerned about the Jim Harbaugh offense, because Jim Harbaugh offense in the NFL was different than what it was in college. You know, there was a lot of ball going in the air when he was the head coach of the 49ers. Colin Kaepernick didn't just run.
And before that, Alex Smith looked really good.
But this is one of those things where if you want to move up or down in your tiers of quarterbacks, Justin Herbert's a really good guy to do that, because you're going to be able to maximize your value. Or if you want to tier up to a guy like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, even though that tier is not that much of a big gap, you're not going to have to add too much to get that stuff done. But if I'm tearing down, I want to look at a guy like Jared Goff, who's extremely consistent, Trevor Lawrence, obviously get plus assets on top of these guys. You know, Brock Purdy. People need to put a little bit more respect on Brock Purdy's name. But what he's done in his career has been very impressive. Even a guy like Rain Prescott, who, you know, who's still out there slinging it at about, I think he's 30, something like that, 30, 31.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, still put up really good numbers on a weekly basis. A couple trades here, and these are all guys I talked about. I think you could do Herbert for Goff in a second. Might be able to get 2 seconds, maybe even Herbert for Trevor Lawrence, do some staggered seconds. I talk about that. Herbert in a third, for Purdy in a first, and Herbert for Prescott in a first. I think Prescott's probably the most attainable of those 4 guys that I mentioned before, just because of the age factor. But still, it's got to be for another 7 to 10 years for all we know.
I don't mind moving Herbert for some of these other quarterbacks in a first-round pick, because it's always nice to have another first-round pick. But I need that first-round pick probably to move Herbert to a Brock Purdy. Dak Prescott, I'm a pretty big Dak Prescott fan for fantasy football, so I'm a little bit higher on him than consensus. So I would be pretty happy with Dak Prescott in the first-round pick, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Dak Prescott is a really good fantasy quarterback.
It sure is.
Puts up good numbers every year, except in our last pod, you mentioned 2020. He got hurt. He missed a lot of the year. Can't put up good numbers from the bench. But aside from that, for the most part, he's damn good. And even the one year where he was throwing all those interceptions, he was still making up for it by throwing for a lot of touchdowns. And so he's not the most mobile quarterback, but he can run every now and again. It's actually pretty effective. So that's what we're looking at. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed our buy, sell, hold, avoid. If you want to not avoid us, come check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rankings. We're giving away a week for free, which is insane. So until next time, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.